Just think about this. We're just 3 weeks into the Trump presidency. And as always, there's a lot to keep track of. A storm of executive actions, executive orders, and of course, the lawsuits that followed. Strong reaction also pouring in from across the world. In fact, this comment, though, sure to dominate the questions in today's briefing. Listen what the president said.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site. I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
You heard the reaction there in the room. So meantime, we are keeping a close eye on the podium right now. We'll bring you the very latest from the White House press briefing room as soon as that begins. Of course, we're anticipating a lot of questions on how this would work. So on Capitol Hill, reaction to President Trump's proposal to take over Gaza, taking over the headlines. Democrats slamming the move as, quote, horrific. Republicans call the proposal a good development. Here's Senator John Fetterman taking a different approach than some of his Democratic colleagues. Listen.
Just trying to shake things up and just announce, like, there is some truths about Gaza. How are somebody able to leave there right now when probably 85 to 90% or more of the buildings are destroyed or seriously damaged? So where are people going to live and how things are going to go? And how can you rebuild Gaza until Hamas is still allowed to endure? So there's a lot of questions, and where's the money going to come from? So this is about, I think for me, I didn't take it as like a serious situation, and it's just about shaking things up, but I'm not going to freak out on it.
So let's go live to CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns on the Hill. All right, he's not freaking out about it, but I have to ask you because Mike Johnson seems at least open to what the president said about Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, today he called it a bold move, and he seemed to be deferential to the president on this and kind of waiting to see, in his words, what happens specifically here. But by and large, you're not seeing Republicans really willing to criticize the president on anything, especially not on this. Now, what's important to note here is that, this is a president who ran for years on a non-interventionist kind of foreign policy. This, you would imagine, would be antithetical to that approach. You also have at the same time the president's directive to essentially unwind USAID foreign aid. So how does that square with a potential proposal to require more intervention in the Middle East and not ruling out the use of U.S. military troops on the ground there? So we are monitoring Republican reaction on this specifically because this is would represent kind of a fissure within the party on this. But by and large, you're seeing a Republican Party pretty deferential to the president, wanting to give him time and space here. But again, how does that challenge their long-held beliefs?
Well, speaking of a Republican Party wanting to give deference and time and space, let's talk about the president's picks for confirmation. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., they cleared the hurdles yesterday out of committee. So now what happens there?
Yeah, big procedural hurdles. That yesterday was really the question about the fates of these two controversial nominees. And the idea that they got through committee gets them obviously a step closer to full confirmation by the Senate, but remove some of those wild cards or questions about whether they could actually get there, and their teams feeling much more confident in their confirmations.
Okay, so never at a loss for headlines these days. We want to get to this. Congressman Al Green gave a passionate speech on the House floor calling for the impeachment of President Trump. We want to let our viewers hear what was said there and then ask you about it. So listen.
I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done.
All right, so of course he is reacting to the news of what came out of that news conference with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu regarding the U.S. potentially taking over the Gaza Strip. What kind of legs can this have?
Well, you have to consider who it's coming from. Al Green has proposed impeaching President Trump several times, especially in his first administration. So this is nothing new. I don't think this has many legs here on Capitol Hill because of who it's coming from. The bigger question is, how do Democrats counter the president and his proposals and his use of executive authority, especially? I mean, Democrats up here are in the minority. They have limited tools to go after some of these things that they're seeing coming from the White House, but they have very little leverage to do it. On the Senate side, there is an effort to stall the confirmation processes for his nominees, for example. But there is this broader question about what Democrats can actually do countering this administration. A lot of it will be through messaging. Just outside here, there is a big protest of USAID workers trying to send a message that way. There are going to be lots of legal fights as well. I wouldn't put too much stock in this declaration for impeachment because it's kind of been done a lot from this particular congressman. But that's something that we're looking for, is how exactly Democrats counter, whether through messaging or policy, what's coming from this administration, especially when you have that united Republican force around the president, essentially ceding some of their power to him, at least at the moment.
The pen of history has to write fast. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much for that update.